Hello, everyone, and welcome to Behind the Crime Door. I'm Kristin. For all of you that are new here, thank you so much for tuning in. Today, I'm going to go over the state's response to Richard Allen's second motion to dismiss based upon newly discovered, destroyed, and/or missing exculpatory or potentially useful evidence. I decided to go ahead and go over this without a live, simply because I think it's easier, and then you guys can just listen to it um, at your leisure. Now comes the state of Indiana by prosecuting attorney Nicholas C. McClelland and respectively objects to the defendant's second motion to dismiss based upon newly discovered or destroyed and/or missing exculpatory or potentially useful evidence and would ask the court to deny the same. There is no basis in the law or fact to support the defense's motion, and it should be denied. Further, there is no exculpatory evidence and/or potentially useful evidence that the state has not turned over or is missing or that the state destroyed. Finally, Brad Holder is not a third-party suspect, and there is no evidence tying Brad Holder to the murder of the victims in this case. In support of said objection, the state would ask the court to consider the following. Number one, that the law is clear. A dismissal of charges due to the state's destroying or losing evidence is only permitted when the evidence is materially exculpatory or when the evidence is deemed potentially useful to the defense and the destruction of the evidence was done in bad faith. Chisel versus State, 705 NE 2D 501, Indiana Court of Appeals, 1999. Number two, the defense have not alleged any example of missing or lost evidence that is materially exculpatory or potentially useful to the case against Richard Allen, nor has the defense cited any example of the state acting in bad faith in destroying any kind of potentially useful evidence. 3. The exculpatory evidence is defined as evidence that tends to establish a criminal defendant's innocence. State versus Durrett, 923 NE 2D 449, Indiana Court of Appeals, 1999. Evidence is exculpatory if it clears or tends to clear the defendant from alleged fault or guilt. Brown versus State, 222 NE 3D 362, Indiana Court of Appeals, 2023. For the destruction of materially exculpatory evidence to support a dismissal, the materially exculpatory evidence must be evidence that possesses an exculpatory value that was apparent before the evidence was destroyed and must be of such a nature that the defendant would be unable to obtain comparable evidence by other reasonably available means. Chisel versus State, 705 NE 2D 501, Indiana Court of Appeals, 1999. That for evidence to be potentially useful evidence, it must be evidentiary material of which no more can be said than that it could have been subjected to tests, the results of which might have exonerated the defendant. Wade versus State, 718 NE 2D 1162, Indiana Court of Appeals, 1999. Quoting from Arizona versus Youngblood, 488 U.S. 5157, 1988. To be subject to a dismissal, law enforcement must have destroyed that potentially useful evidence in bad faith. Bad faith is defined as failing to preserve evidence pursuant to a conscious doing of wrong because of a dishonest purpose or moral obliquity. Terry versus State, 857 NE 2D 396, Indiana Court of Appeal, 2006. Number 5. The defense identified 3 items of evidence that they allege were destroyed or missing, which support a dismissal, including Brad Holder's phone extraction, all evidence of Brad Holder's second interview with law enforcement, and a mimicked crime scene image found on Brad Holder's social media. They claim that these things are exculpatory or potentially useful and were destroyed by law enforcement in bad faith. Number 6. In regards to Brad Holder's phone extraction, there is no reliable evidence that the state ever extracted data from Brad Holder's phone. The only support that the state ever possessed Brad Holder's phone is in the May 2nd, 2024 Brad Holder deposition. The defense in their motion report that Holder indicated that he was pretty sure he turned his phone over to the police. In addition to saying that he was pretty sure, Holder went on to say, "I'm not going to say that positively, but I'm pretty sure they took my phone. They took my son's and my phone." Deposition page 13. The state believes that Holder is referring to February 17th, 2017, where he and his son were both interviewed at the Delphi Police Department. On at least 2 occasions in the deposition, Holder states that the police took both his phone and his son's phone while father and son were in the lobby of the police station on the day they were questioned by the police. When asked how he knew the police took Logan's phone, Holder said, "I'm pretty sure they did it right there in the lobby. I'm pretty sure they took both of our phones. Don't quote me on that because that was a long time ago." Deposition page 14. However, as documented in records previously provided in discovery, Indiana State Police Sergeant Brian Booner collected Logan Holder's phone at Logansport High School on February 14th, 2017 at 12:45 p.m. Logan's mother signed the consent to search form as the parent of Logan. Brad Holder was not present. Sergeant Booner traveled to Logansport High School and initiated contact with Logan and his mother prior to the victims' bodies being recovered, in hopes that data on the phone may assist the police in locating the victims. Brad Holder's account of the police taking his phone is unreliable since Logan Holder's phone was seized 3 days earlier and not as Holder insisted. Contemporaneous with the taking of Brad Holder's phone, Brad Holder never said the police maintained possession of his phone or extracted data from it. The state is aware of no evidence that the police extracted data from Brad Holder's phone or ever had possession of it. Therefore, there is no evidence that the police destroyed or lost Brad Holder's phone extraction data, much less did so in bad faith. Further, even if there had been an extraction of Brad Holder's phone that was destroyed or lost by law enforcement, there is no evidence to support the argument that data on Brad Holder's phone constituted potentially useful evidence for the defendant, much less material exculpatory evidence. Despite the defense's claim, there is no evidence, either physical evidence or witness statements, that connect Brad Holder to the murders or to the crime scene. There exists no nexus connecting Brad Holder to the crimes. The defense is relying on pure speculation that data on Brad Holder's phone was potentially useful to exculpate the defendant. Number 7, in regards to a second interview of Brad Holder done by law enforcement, in his deposition, Brad Holder stated that sometime he believed maybe a year or 2 after his first interview, he was interviewed at the Logansport Police Department by 2 Indiana State police officers, a man and a woman. The state was unaware of any such interview. In the weeks following the deposition, the state has made efforts to determine if an interview of Brad Holder occurred at the Logansport Police Department. Recently, specifically May 28, 2024, ISP Detective Roland Purdy reported to investigator Steve Mullen that he and Detective Lori Lemler interviewed Brad Holder in the fall of 2017 at the Logansport Police Department. Detective Purdy stated that he had learned that Holder had previously been interviewed and the investigation had ruled him out as a suspect. He said he and Detective Lemler met with Holder to learn more about what Holder knew about Odinism. Detective Purdy said the interview was not recorded nor was a formal report written. There is no support for the argument that the evidence related to Brad Holder's interview at the Logansport Police Department was destroyed or lost. Neither is there any evidence that the Holder interview at Logansport Police Department resulted in any potentially useful evidence, much less materially exculpatory evidence. Number 8, finally, the defense claimed that a key piece of evidence is missing, an image purportedly from Brad Holder's social media that mimics the crime scene. However, the defense not only acknowledged in their motion to dismiss that the image is in their possession, but they showed it to multiple police officers in depositions, which the officers identified as coming from Brad Holder's social media. Therefore, the defense is arguing that the charges should be dismissed based upon the destruction or loss of evidence the defense currently possesses. There is no case law supporting such an argument. As stated in Chisel v. State 705 NE 2D 501, Indiana Court of Appeals, 1999. Materially exculpatory evidence is that evidence which possesses an exculpatory value that was apparent before the evidence was destroyed and must be of such nature that the defendant would be unable to obtain comparable evidence by other reasonably available means. Quoting from California v. Trombetta, 467 U.S. 479, 489, 1984. Number 9, that none of this evidence that the defense says is missing or destroyed is exculpatory evidence for the case against Richard Allen. Brad Holder is not a third-party suspect. There is no evidence that ties him to the murder of the victims in this case. The evidence ties Richard Allen to the murder of the victims in this case. Number 10, that the state did not destroy or lose evidence purposely in bad faith. The motion to dismiss is replete with unfounded allegations and distorted and misinterpreted facts. The defense makes allegations that are not true and are not supported by any evidence whatsoever. The state's responses to those false allegations are as follows. A, that the fact that Brad Holder gave different answers to how many times he met Abby Williams does not somehow make items A through H exculpatory. B, there is no evidence to support that the rune on Brad Holder's hand mimics the sticks found on Abby. Further, there is no evidence to support the facts outlined in the first Frank's motion. C, that no portion of the October 26, 2022 interview of the defendant is missing. The defense has been provided with the entire recording. D, that Lieutenant Jerry Holman did not lie in his August 10th, 2023 deposition when he answered the question, was Brad Holder a suspect? With, not really, no. Lieutenant Holman went on to state on the following page that Brad Holder wasn't really a suspect because the belief had encountered him through Holder's, because the police had encountered him through Holder's son, who was a friend of the victims and was interviewed, and the investigation revealed he was at work at the time of the murders. E, that the state has turned over to the defense the Todd Click letter and related reports and interviews after the state became aware that said items had not been previously provided. The state did not intentionally delay in providing the information to the defense, nor did the state intentionally conceal any evidence in this case. F, the state did not attempt to conceal the identity of the Purdue professor, nor does his testimony contradict the testimony of Lieutenant Holman. This professor, Dr. Turco, has stated under oath that it is the defense who has mischaracterized his testimony rather than Lieutenant Holman. G, that the state did not intentionally delay providing the extraction data from Liberty German's phone, nor did the state conceal the any exculpatory evidence from said phone. H, the state did not conceal a report involving documented communication between Carroll County Prosecutor's Office investigator Steve Mullen and Indiana State Police Trooper Bloker. Nor is the information in the communication in any way exculpatory or even potentially useful. I, that the defense's conclusion that 6.5 years after a complex criminal investigation began, officers had different recollections of what other officers believed during the investigation is somehow proof of a conspiracy to conceal officers' actual beliefs is very strange. The state does not know how that would ever be exculpatory or even potentially useful in the prosecution of Richard Allen for murder. J, that Department of Natural Resources Officer Dan Doolin testified that he prepared a written report of his interview of the defendant but could not locate any evidence that he had recorded his interview of the defendant and therefore believes he did not record it. However, he testified that he prepared his written report very soon after his interview and would have had no reason to destroy the recording. K, that the image that the defense believed is a mimicked crime scene image is not missing. The defense is in possession of the image. L, that Brad Holder is a key third-party suspect is false. Again, there is no evidence tying Brad Holder to the crime. The defense cannot meet its burden to even allege that he is a third-party suspect. Wherefore, the state objects to the defendant's motion to dismiss for destruction of exculpatory evidence and would ask the court to deny the same. Respectfully submitted, Nicholas C. McClelland, attorney number 28300-08, prosecuting attorney. So there we have it. That is the state's response to the defendant's second motion to dismiss. And I guess we will hold on to see what happens and what the Honorable Francis Gull has to say in regards to these motions. I know I've had a lot of people asking me what I think is going to happen, and all I can tell you is this case is so mind-blowing. Anything is possible. I do want to let everyone know that I have a live this Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, and Aspen Connor will be my guest. And I'm really excited to have Aspen on, as he recently spent 9 days in Delphi. And I am just really anxious to have him on. I haven't had him on in well over a year. And it's just time that he and I do some catching up. So I hope you all will turn in for that live stream on Thursday night at 8 p.m. Again, I will keep you up to date as things happen in this case. I am not one to want to just go live because just to go live. So I know that can be sad for some of you, and I do apologize, but I think that I should only go live when there's really something relevant to talk about, or if we have something that we can look at. So I do believe that I'm going to have a live tomorrow night. I haven't excuse me, I haven't got it all planned out yet, but I am going to talk about Richard Allen and the timeline of February 13th to February 14th, the actual timeline at the trails and what went on that day, and how we can look at Richard Allen and the evidence directly pointing to him being Bridge Guy. So I hope you'll tune in for that. There's been some really good stuff lately on that. Gray Hughes has done some amazing work. If you haven't had a chance to go look at some of his short videos on this, I think he's done like 20 and 30-minute videos on this timeline. It's really well worth looking at, you guys. So take a look at that. Tomorrow night, I'm going to talk about that. And I am supposed to be on a live with Coach Kev, and I'm going to for Flora. I'm going to have to find out when that is. I do plan on doing a live for Flora Week, and I just don't know yet what day. I'm trying to get my life in balance here, and this is my last week of therapy, so I've been really concentrating on that. So I'll just have to see what day works. It actually may turn out to be Friday night that I do the live for Flora. So stay tuned, you guys. I hope everyone has a great week. Thank you so much for listening, and everybody be safe out there. Bye.